So I recently went to England before all of the crazy calamities in the world started, and I thought I would just kind of take this afternoon to show you some souvenirs, some things that I picked up when I was there. So first of all, I wish there was a map in here because I could show you my route, but maybe there is one of these things. Oh, well, I went to London, and well, me and Mary, we went to London, and then we rented a car and we drove to Stonehenge, then to Glastonbury, and then through the Cotswolds, and then back to London. So we spent the night in Glastonbury, and then we tried to see as much as we could in London. It's a combination of the classy stuff and the quirky stuff. So and I have quite a few things to show you here. So I don't even know where to begin, but lots. We try to see. For example, we saw the Tower of London, which is amazing. If you're gonna go to London, you need to go to the Tower of London. Lots of history, just overload of history. So many famous people. When you go, there's a certain place where they held prisoners, and you can see where people like John Dudley had scratched these intricate etchings on the wall as he was awaiting his execution. People from the gunpowder plots. That is just amazing to see it with your eyes, to see where their hands had been, and the detail that was put into it. And this is our little guide. We stayed all afternoon through the evening until it was dark at the tower. We saw the ravens. We saw the places where the famous beheadings happened. I we saw the spot where the two little princes were murdered by Richard III. All the people that Henry VIII had imprisoned. Yeah, the beefeaters, the royal guards are there. It is definitely something you need to see if you're gonna go to England. You should not skip the Tower of London. So that's recommendation number one. Another thing that I was really excited to see is the Churchill War Rooms. This museum, it's not just the war rooms, it's also a museum. This is all about Winston Churchill, and you actually get to tour the underground facility where he led the British Army in the war, and all preserved, all just maintained how it was. It's utterly amazing. If you're into World War II history like I am, this is something that you need to see. It's dark and claustrophobic. You have that real feeling that you're in a real place where lots of tension and stress was felt. It's definitely something that you should see. Full of memorabilia, full of artifacts, and so that was definitely something that I really enjoyed. We did go to the British Museum, and I want to show you this. This is a postcard, and it is a perfect little rendering of the Rosetta Stone. And I don't think I'm gonna mail it. I'm just gonna keep it. But I picked this up at the British Museum, and I was really excited to see the Rosetta Stone, more than you can imagine. But that's not the only thing. The British Museum is just loaded with some of the most amazing artifacts, mummies, and this is mostly about the Rosetta Stone itself, and the Egyptian history, and how it was found by Napoleon's army, and how it was used to translate hieroglyphics. So we had no idea how to read hieroglyphics until we had the Rosetta Stone, because it was also translated in Greek and other languages that we could translate. So it was an amazing thing for me to see that in person. And I picked up this book which talks all about it. Okay, this is the guide to the British Museum, and there was so much to do there. We took the metro, and then we had to walk quite a little distance through a college a university with all the classrooms and offices and stuff. And we finally made our way there, and there was a line, so we had lunch, and it was so cool to see that. And then we went in there, and I feel like I could have spent my entire trip just taking in the sights of the British Museum. And I when I go back, I definitely want to spend more time there and really savor all of the utterly amazing mummified cats. Just amazing stuff in the British Museum. Just blew my mind. The first place we went, so when we landed in London, we got into town, we got on the metro, we were in London, and the first place we went to sort of walk while they were getting our hotel room ready was the Natural History Museum. And when you walk in this amazing building, you see this whale skeleton suspended from the ceiling, and it's a big museum. And it's natural history, it's science and stuff. It's like animals and dinosaurs and the moon and birds and stuff. It's really just quite impressive museum, to say the least. It has animatronic dinosaurs. It has Cheddar Man, which is one of the oldest humanoids ever found in England. So, would I recommend it? Absolutely. If you are in London, seriously, stop in there. The Natural History Museum. Definitely want to go there. Okay. And we were there in Christmas time. And somehow, you can't get away from this guy no matter where you go in the world. There's David Hasselhoff. And when I was there also, James McAvoy was playing Cyrano de Bergerac. And this is just something I picked up for free. Just as a free souvenir, my favorite kind. Full of stories and articles, ads, but it's still pretty cool. I love stuff like this. This is my favorite kind of souvenir because this is kind of the off the beaten path sort of thing. And you get an idea of a culture when you read this sort of thing, too. She was in Atonement, I think. Jojo Rabbit was all over the place when we were there. Saw one Da Vinci painting in the National Gallery. It was quite expensive to see it, and it was done up in sort of a they used holograms to sort of recreate Leonardo's studio and how it looked when it was on Ultrapiece. It was kind of impressive. Star Wars. We watched Star Wars in London. We watched The Rise of Skywalker in... I'll show you. Let's see. When we watched it in the Odeon, we got this free book. We got two of them because me and Mary both got one. And I guess it was in Leicester Square, I want to say. And this is such a cool souvenir. I guess you could only get this if you watched it in an Odeon theater in London. I don't know if that's a chain in England, but I was really thrilled to get this handed to me for free on the way out of the movie. Two other things I bought. I got I picked this up in a convenience store, and it's a Rise of Skywalker like commemorative book with some bonuses in it. There's a Christmas like a donation thing. Then there was this really cool print of Dark Ray that you could frame on your wall, and then you get a copy of Empire, and it's just a movie magazine. You get some ads for cool stuff like Lego, and you get to see the British brands that we don't have here. I saw that in the theater. That was a freaky movie. You know, it's funny. In America, it's called The Lighthouse. In England, I guess it's called Stormy Waters, because there's already a movie called The Lighthouse in England that's pretty much the same story. So that's just interesting. A lot of times in foreign countries, like and the movie Fury about the tank in Europe was called Heart of Glory. So there's your Star Wars section in this magazine. And then you get a copy of the Skywalker saga. And it has an intro with Warwick Davis, British actor. And Haynes, the actual company that does real things like submarines and stuff, is actually doing Star Wars stuff. And then it gives you all kinds of good information about Star Wars, the making of, behind the scenes pictures. If you're a Star Wars fan like me, this was definitely a take home thing, because this is something you could only get in England, and just makes for a great souvenir. Definitely, it was an exciting time to be in England. First of all, the beer bug hadn't really kicked in yet. It existed at that point, but second of all, so we were free to walk around without a mask on. It was Christmas time, and boy, the people in England love Christmas. They really love it. So everyone was in a pretty festive mood. Everyone was happy. We were there on Christmas Day, walking around the parks. I had so much fun in London. I really did, and I just enjoyed it so much. I of course picked up a copy of the Times. Saturday, December 28th, which was our anniversary, and this is just the news. Another thing that we enjoyed in London that I highly recommend doing is they make a special sandwich. So we were staying in a hotel, and when Mary and I travel, we travel on the cheap. We don't like to spend a lot of money. We like to just have the experience. So we would go to the local stores, Sainsbury or whatever local stores around us, and we would pick up what they call Christmas sarnies, which are little Christmas sandwiches made just that time of year. And, you know, like turkey and dressing and all kinds of cool flavors that you can only get one time of year, and get a bottle of Coke and call dinner good, you know. And that was just another treat, that something that I've only seen in England, the whole idea of the Christmas sarnies. So they're basically just sandwiches, like ready-made in a red package with little Christmas decorations on it, and it's just really cool. It made for some fun dinners. And then we had some other great dinners. In Glastonbury, we had Sunday roast because we were there on Sunday night, and oh my gosh, it was so good with Yorkshire pudding. And then for breakfast, we had tea and crumpets, and then when we drove around, then later on when we were in Castle Combe, we had fish and chips, and it was so good. We also had fish and chips in London, in Whitechapel, in the same place where Jack the Ripper had written some graffiti. There's actually a chip shop there, and it was covered. The whole restaurant was themed by Jack the Ripper. It was very kind of an unsettling experience. And more on that in a second. We did do a Jack the Ripper tour in Whitechapel with a tour company that was a little bit more serious than others. They really stressed, that this was an actual crime, and it shouldn't be, taken with a light heart. And it was very respectfully done. But for a person like me who is interested in history, it was exactly the kind of tour that I needed. But we also went to the Jack the Ripper Museum. This museum I think it was founded by an American tech company CEO. Would I recommend it? Only if you are looking for a novelty. Only if you are looking for a really weird experience. It was not particularly good or accurate or respectful. They renamed it The History of Women in the East End, and they did that purely for political reasons. They didn't do it because they're really honoring women. They did a little bit of I don't know. And I'm just being honest here. It really was kind of a carnival sort of thing. I did get a kick out of it. Because if you have a bit of a sense of humor, there are a few artifacts supposedly in it, like the police whistle by someone who's found one of the bodies and so forth. But all in all, it was there was a mortuary in the, but it was I stopped short of saying it in bad taste, but it was an interesting experience. I'm glad I did it, and I wouldn't change anything. But still, just be aware that it's not, if you're expecting a very serious study of Jack the Ripper, or if you're expecting a serious, sobering look at women of the East End, you're not going to find a lot there. You'll find a little bit of it's hard to explain, but I don't feel like they genuinely were saying those about the women of East London, other than the fact that it was protested heavily for celebrating the murders of a lot of women, and then I think they did that to sort of ease the protests. So we did go to a fantastic museum called the Museum of Brands. If my wife's a graphic designer, and I am also a person, if you watch my channel, you know that I love old stuff, brands, vintage stuff. My gosh, this museum was amazing in Notting Hill, and it has all of this old stuff, including old action figures. Just the history of brands just blew my mind. I had lunch. We ended up having lunch there. There's a nice cafe inside of it. Highly recommend it. This is a must-do. Let's see what else we got here. This is all from. Okay. Bought this on our way back from the Tower of London. This is a Jack the Ripper book I've never found anywhere else. Oddly enough, it was in a little convenience store, and I think there was I bought it, and then there was a coupon for the Jack the Ripper Museum for buying it. So, but it's a book that with a digital reconstruction shows all of the same places I went to when I was on the Jack the Ripper tour. I actually walked in all of these places, and there was a creepy feeling because we did the tour at night, and it definitely was unsettling. Uh, because you know what I mean? It's like something terrible happened in these places, and you can still sort of sense it. I bought this when we were driving, and so we stopped at a rest stop, and they had this book for £7. It's Kings and Queens of the British Isles: A History of Monarchy, and just a really good book. Very in depth, very detailed. Great for a leisurely afternoon read to learn about the monarchy of England and all of the history. It is packed with information. And as you can see, this is put out by the Times, and it was an interesting, enjoyable thing to find for £7, and that's one of the benefits of getting a car and getting away from the cities, is you can find treasures like this for cheap. Here's a little London planner we picked up for free. A lot of if you're in the city, there's obviously a lot of plays and theater. I've still yet to go to a play in Europe, and I would like to do it because in these cities, that's not for reals. That we saw this in the metro station. We're like, really? Can we see the sarcophagus? But there's a disclaimer. There was a disclaimer in this is not, there's the little tiny disclaimer right there. This is not what you're seeing. This thing is like that tall. I mean, it's very misleading, and I was kind of disappointed that that's one of the pitfalls of going to a city. They do try to lure you in, but you'll see more. You would actually have a better time going to the British Museum than going to things like that. Madame Tussauds London Star Wars. I wish I'd seen that, and I didn't get a chance to see that. That's the Wax Museum. But it was more important for me to see things like Stonehenge and eat at great restaurants and get a great full breakfast. There's a lot of talk about how London is dangerous. We hear that a lot in America. Like, London is dangerous. I'd never had a sense of danger, and I was all over that city walking around. So I think that when you hear about places being dangerous, there's always an inherent danger no matter where you go. London, to me, was safe, friendly. The people were helpful and kind. The people, even outside of London, everywhere we went in England, I just continually met people who were just absolutely kind. When we were at the tour of Glastonbury, someone let us actually park our car in their driveway so we could walk and take it in without having to pay. And I mean, you see that kindness in England everywhere you go. And so in my opinion, there's nothing dangerous about going there any more than any other place in the world. There's always going to be an inherent danger no matter where you go, but don't believe that there is anything particularly or exceptionally dangerous about London, because there's really not. Unless I just missed a lot, but I was there for a long time and walked all over the city in all kinds of different parts of it. When we did leave, we went through Stonehenge. We stopped there, and I picked up a few souvenirs, this being one of them, and I started trying to build this collection of these little books. Glastonbury, I was after Stonehenge, a little ways down the road. Stonehenge was stunning to see. We were there on winter solstice, which was at a time, if you get there early enough, you can actually go up to the stones. you actually can be there for the winter solstice. However, when the actual park itself opens at 10 or 11, they close it off. They clean everything up. So then you have to pay to get in. But that's a little tip from me that you can get up to the stones if you want to, if you go early on winter solstice. There will be a lot of people wearing capes and playing interesting musical instruments, but that's the truth. Then Glastonbury, this amazing city. We spent the night there in a hotel from the 1600s or 1500s where Henry VIII had slept. Had a great dinner there, had a great breakfast. We saw the old Glastonbury Abbey, the ruins of it. Supposedly the grave of King Arthur was there. We saw the site. There's the thorn. The holy thorn is there. It's supposedly a tree that was planted by the staff of Joseph of Arimathea. I got a little piece of it and gave it to my mother-in-law. She really liked it. And of course the tour. If you Google tour of Glastonbury, it is a tower on top of this terraced hill, and it's stunning. You see it from miles away. So when we got there, Mary and I walked up to the top of it, and we just hung out there for a while. There was a lot of people up there playing music, some people smoking weed. It was winter solstice. What can you say? It was kind of a hipster, hippie, new agey kind of place. So now Mary and I don't do that. So we detected it, but you know, I don't judge. But anyway, it itself, it was an amazing thing to see and to walk around. It was a beautiful day. Just utterly stunning day. So a day I'll never forget. The only thing I warn you about, if you walk up to the tour, and if you do it like we did by walking to the grass, you may step in a lot of sheep dung. But hey, it was worth it to see some of the things we saw. Really, really enjoyed it. That was £6.99. That's what I mean. When you get off the beaten path, things aren't as expensive. I guess I should have shown you this first. This is the Stonehenge, the actual park guide you get at Stonehenge. You get this for free when you take the tour. And it shows you all the sites, all the different things. Basically, if you want to go to Stonehenge, and if you're not going on the free day that I mentioned, what you do is you drive past the stones, then you go to a reception center that's got a cafe and a gift shop and it has a little museum and an outdoor museum. You hang out there until a tour starts, and then you load onto a bus, and the bus carries you to Stonehenge, and then you're allowed to walk around the stones that are surrounded by a fence, and it's usually really crowded. So get there early, and but it's still absolutely worth it if you're going to go to England to see these. And then the book shows you lots of the things that were found there. I've been, fascinated with Stonehenge my entire life. So really enjoyed that. So when we were in Glastonbury, we saw the Abbey, and we went to the Abbey Museum. And I mentioned the grave of King Arthur. The abbey was torn down by the orders of Henry VIII, and the abbot was killed at the tour. It was a rough time because the Catholic Church had been banned in England, and it was being replaced with a new Common Book of Prayer. And when Henry VIII wanted a divorce from his wife, so this magnificent abbey was torn down, and all that's left of this ghostly ruins. And when I say ghostly, I mean ghostly. When you're there, it is otherworldly. After Glastonbury, we drove to Castle Combe, which is considered one of the most beautiful villages in England, if not the whole world. It's in the Cotswolds. We drove there. I was pleased that we could that we parked. It was Christmas time, so a lot of the bakeries were closed, but they left their stuff outside with a honor box where you could pick up something you wanted and pay. So we bought some cookies and some plum pudding and stuff, and just left our money in the little box. We went to the church that has a crusader. There's a crusader actually buried in the church in that town. That if you saw one of the Indiana Jones movies, they're buried where it looks like they're lying down with their sword. I love this old school kind of tour book we picked up. This was in the church, and it was an honor system. You just leave your money and buy it. I also picked up a cookbook that was made by the locals there with some great holiday recipes by people who live in Castle Combe. So that was just a nice personal souvenir. These are the things I like to bring home. Of course, we went to some of the souvenir stores to buy little things, little nifty things like this. These are full of tea. We haven't drank it yet, but we really just wanted the tins. Sadly, when we were in front of Big Ben, we were right there in front of it, but it was all covered up in scaffolding, so we didn't really get to see it. But there is tea in here that I'd like to drink at some point. And then when you're finished drinking the tea, it's a coin bank. And these are just little whatevers. We got a bus, we got a phone booth, and a little Big Ben and a big Ben. I picked this up when we were in Glastonbury. It's a little new agey magazine, because to say that there's a lot of new agey people in Glastonbury is a huge understatement. I'm not much of a new agey guy myself, but I just found it interesting. Most of the bookstores sell new agey books. I'm a guy from Alabama, so I found this very interesting. It's not anything that I see where I obviously, if you know anything about Alabama, we don't really have a new age culture here. So it was just interesting to see some of the interesting stuff here that is all completely foreign to me. And so this was free. They were all over the place in Glastonbury. And it's mostly ads for different types of services, medicines and healing services, I guess. And that might tell you something. And so that was that. Now, one thing I like to do when I go to a country, if they have a different currencies, I like to play money. I just find this to be an interesting souvenir. I had first found this set, and I think it was in Poundland. But then I found this set, and I kind of like this set better because it's got like better coins and it's got more denominations. But I always like when I'm in I have euros, and whenever I go to a country and if there is a different country, I do like to get the play money. It's just an interesting souvenir. And let's see if there's any other things I can show you. I think this is just odds and ends that, like receipts or ticket stubs to things. I don't know if there's anything worth showing to say in this. Like, this was a menu. Oh, this menu was at the Jack the Ripper fish restaurant. This is when Aldgate, London. This restaurant was at the site where, let me just read it about us. Happy Days Fish and Chip Restaurant is a small London-based restaurant with a rich heritage. We pride ourselves on our excellent service, delicious food, and pristine venue. Historically, Happy Days Restaurant, or more rather the flats it used to be in the 1880s, plays a major role in the story of the notorious Jack the Ripper. It is the site of the one and only clues ever to be found in the connection of the criminal. Furthermore, it is the site of one of his most famous graffiti works, a plaque of which can be found hanging on our wall. And that's true, the plaque's there. And that day, or that night, it was dark, I ordered the special regular cod, chips, mushy peas, and a buttered roll. And for dessert, I had sticky toffee pudding, which was really, really good. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Worth a look. Let's see. can't. This is from a tour guide. That was from our tour. We got the little handout, and then these are the other tours that you can take with him. Another Jack the Ripper thing. Oh, that's from the museum. Never mind. Let's see. If there's anything else, that's a ticket stub from the Churchill Museum. Imperial War Museum ticket stub. And I kind of think mostly everything else is just ticket stubs and receipts that we saved. When you travel abroad, my advice is always save your receipts, because at the end of the night, when you get back to your room, go through your receipts and tally up what you spent, because it's really, really easy when you're abroad and you're using different currency and you're having fun and you're excited to spend lots of money and not keep track of it. So it's all, if you're traveling cheap like I do, and to save money and stretch out your fun, always do that at the end of the night. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I sure enjoyed showing it to you. So please rate, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell icon. Bye.